Time now for another edition of Snap Tackle Pod with Dion, Clisso. I'm Mick, Shaffer, 41 Action News. Dion at PrepsKC and PrepsKC.com. Dion, how are you?
Doing well. This is a fun week. I mean, the next 2 weeks are kind of
Next 2 weeks, right?
are the best 2 weeks. I mean, you've got district finals on the Missouri side, quarterfinals in Class 6, and then you got quarterfinals on the Kansas side. And 4A is just loaded quarterfinals. I think 5A, there's a couple teams that maybe rise above everybody else, and then 6A is loaded too. A lot of good games there.
Yeah, can't wait for a lot of games on both sides of the state line this week. We've got basically Final 8 or Final 16. It depends on which side of the state you are and which class you're in. But it should ramp up here these next couple of weeks into Thanksgiving, at least on the Kansas side, where we'll have all the state championship games. And the Missouri is going to be the week later, correct?
Yeah, you have 1 through 5 a week later. So, and we've got some teams in the Metro that got a good shot at going 1 through 5 on the Missouri side. Even if you want to take Mid Buchanan, who's up near St. Joe, is kind of a Metro team. They play Metro schools, so they're the number one team in Class 1. So they 1 through 5, there's somebody who's got a shot to go, and some will be tougher than others. Five you're going to meet up with the Carthage Webb City along the way, but there's some good teams out there, and they got a shot to play deep.
Let's talk about last week's games. How great was that Liberty Blue Springs game?
Crazy. Liberty jumped out early, or Blue Springs jumped out early, and you're like, whoa, and then they came back. Liberty came back, and then Blue Springs came back and got there, and they had that late fumble. Liberty scored. Blue Springs had a chance there late. In the last minute, didn't get it done. Miss a field goal, and then they don't even really try and run any offense at Liberty. They were that confident in their kicker, Rockjob, who's the soccer coach's son, and he was a longtime soccer coach up at Liberty. So he's his dad is his kicking coach, and I talked with Coach Fergon today, and he said he's a confident kid. He tells me all the time, there's no goalie in the goalpost. You just kick it. You don't have to worry about that. Yeah. He's like, even if I'm doing a PK in soccer, I got a goalie there. So, it's one of those things. And luckily for football team, they play on Friday nights, and the soccer team got beat last Saturday by Park Hill, so their season is over, because we've seen some of that happen, some overlap. Last year, Platte County's very good kicker was their best soccer player, and he missed their semifinal game when they went to St. Mary's in St. Louis. And but no, they survived and made it on to the state championship game. Lisa West was missing their kicker last Saturday because they played at Nick's on Saturday. So those soccer guys are great, but sometimes there's a conflict here or there that'll get you.
Well, then a lot of schools won't let you play both. So good on the schools that let you play both soccer and football at the same time. Last week, not a lot of upsets, Dion, but there were a couple. You mentioned Nick's beating Lee Summit West. That stands out. St. James over Paola. Those are the two biggest upsets in your mind?
Yeah, and the St. James game, just talking with people and knowing the kind of team that each of them are, it was going to be a good chance for one. St. James throws the ball really well, and that's kind of the weakness of the Paola defense. And Paola's not built to come from behind, so St. James would need to jump out on them. And they went double reverse flea flicker pass on their first play for a touchdown. And then onside kicked and got the ball back, and we're up 14-0 in a hurry, and made Paola play from behind, and that's not their style. And made it a 45-35 game in the end. They're up 31-7.
Well, yeah, Paola had a huge lead. St. James had a huge lead. Paola came all the way back, and then it seemed like St. James made the final push there to get the.
Well, in the first play from scrimmage, that double reverse flea flicker thing. Yeah. So they get it. They do a good job of blocking it long enough to get all that crap going. Because it's basically a sweep, and then there's a reverse. And then he tosses it back to the quarterback on the way back. Well, Dakota Burrett throws it out there, and the receiver, he's got 10 yards on him, makes the catch, running down the field, and somewhere around the 2-yard line, the ball just kind of jumps out of his hands. It bounces kind of right back up into his hands as he doesn't break stride for the touchdown. Wow. That play had everything. No, it was a crazy start to that game. And St. James really played well, but St. James they played good competition this year, and Paola is a good team, and they were ranked number 1 in the state. And the last 4 teams in that 4A bracket, they got Basin Linwood this week, who they beat by a touchdown late in the game, early in the season, and then you got Bishop Miege and Tonganoxie. So all 4 of those teams are good enough to play for state championship.
Yeah, we'll talk about 5A here or 4A rather in a minute here. Another game from last week that stood out. I don't know if it's a upset or not, but I wasn't expecting this score. Summit Christian hammered Oak Grove.
Yeah.
Did you see that coming?
I thought Summit Christian could win. I thought they had the more experienced quarterback. I didn't pick them. I'm not going to act like I was like, oh, no, Summit Christian. No, I thought they could win that game. Oak Grove was healthy, healthier than they've been in a long time. They really run the ball well. Coach Harold Wamsgong, who co-hosts my radio show with me, he had seen Summit Christian the week before against Pleasant Hill. He said they really struggled stopping the run. And so I kind of listened to him, and I said, well, I'll pick Oak Grove here. It didn't matter. They did something better to stop the run. And Oak Grove, again, a team not built to come from behind. And Summit Christian, Grayson Sprouse, their quarterback, who's been starting for, I think this is his 8th or 9th year as a starting quarterback for them, dual threat guy. And then, sometimes if you've got the quarterback and the skill guys, even if you can't stop the run, the team gets down, and it just kind of ended for Oak Grove right there. And kind of a disjointed season for them. They were really good early. They're the only team to beat Warrensburg this year. And then they lose to Odessa, and then they are out for basically 3 weeks at the end of the season because of 2 weeks of COVID, and then they had an open date on their schedule because they flip-flopped with Warrensburg early in the season, and then they lose to Summit Christian in the second round. So, but Summit Christian's been the district championship game for the last 3-4 years, so they really are a team that's used to doing this. They were in Class 2, and now they're up in Class 3. And funny thing about them is they're really one of the smallest. They are the smallest Class 3 football school because of the way the multiplier worked. They were right on the line to be in Class 1 just in terms of population, and they bumped down, and they get like a double bump almost to go from 2 to 3. So no, that's an experienced program. They do a really good thing, and that they've been good for a long time. And so up in 3, but now they get Odessa. That's like being a small Class 2 school playing one of the bigger Class 3 schools that, oh, by the way, has won 24 games in a row now, 25.
Games,
yeah. I mean, they're looking like they could do it again. So, that's a pretty tough task for Summit Christian. But no, that score definitely was a surprise, 35-0.
Let's talk Missouri Class 5 here. Great games last week.
Yeah.
Platte County, Raytown, Staley, all advanced by like a total of 16 points to this round of the playoffs. How close is it? Is it a kind of a crapshoot in Class 5?
I think it is. And, you're talking about Raytown's playing Green Valley, who they beat by 1 touchdown. Staley offensively, they didn't go off to a very good start this season. They played really well the last few weeks, just kind of like handling their business. But then they go and beat Park Hill South, who beat them pretty good in the regular season. And they shut down that Park Hill South offense, which is one of the more underrated offenses in the Metro, and just held them out. And their offensive and defensive line for Staley's playing fantastic right now. They only put up 14 points. I don't think they're going to be able to win with 14 points against Platte County, because I don't think you're holding them to the 9 like they did with Park Hill South. I mean, Platte County's offense is as good as anybody. So we'll see. But Staley, a good win for them, and 6th straight district championship game for them.
Wow. Yeah, no, I know success there, even in down years, quote unquote, for the Falcons.
Yeah.
Let's switch over to Kansas here. 6A, Olathe North, Blue Valley North, Shawnee Mission, Northwest. Who's the best out of that bunch? Because they're the 4 on the top half of the bracket in the final 8 in 6A.
Whoever makes it to C-back to play. That's all I'm saying.
You can't answer that way. Call it right.
I tell you, if you go Commons, boy, I tell you think Olathe North, they played Lawrence to the 2-point conversion. Mm-hmm. But Blue Valley North is doing what Blue Valley North has done the last 4 or 5 years. They go in the playoffs and just play really well. And they're a tough team to defend. They throw it all over the yard. They've got good receivers, good tailback. Shawnee Mission Northwest, we've seen what they've done. I mean, they did a pretty good job against an Olathe West team that's pretty solid. But Blue Valley is kind of the team that I don't think people are giving enough credit to. They started out, they lost their first game of the season. They haven't lost since. Got a win over St. James in there that last week of the regular season. And they have, since they've started the season with a new quarterback, Grayson Hobart, who was going to be their tailback, or number 2 tailback, depending on if Chase Jans was going to play at all. They went, we're going to be a good team. They lost their quarterback, they lost their tailback, but the other guys are still there. So I think that once they kind of got the quarterback situation settled out, as Grayson Hobart basically had to go, oh, I'm a quarterback now, like in 3 weeks, mm-hmm. and get it going. And there was a time that, and then there's 2 weeks in there when they weren't playing, when they didn't practice. So that's tough too. You start, you stop. You didn't have an off season. They're looking pretty good. They're a team that's to keep an eye on. And if they get up on Olathe North, Olathe North's not built to throw the ball a yard and come back. So I think both of those games are almost toss-ups.
Okay. So you didn't answer my question then.
Who do I think is the best team right now? I'm going to go with Olathe North right now.
I think that's the right answer too. I think Northwest is the best offense, but they can allow points too.
Yeah, they get a lot of shootouts.
I think Olathe North, Blue Valley, and then Shawnee Northwest and Blue Valley North very close to each other.
I think the Blue Valley's defense is highly underrated. I mean,
yeah.
Blue Valley Northwest, Mikey Pauly and that crew can score some points, and they get up and down the field, and they held them to 7 last week. So,
yeah. 8 teams left in Kansas 6A, but 5 are from the metro area because we have Lawrence over there on the west side of the bracket playing Derby, the team that's won, 100 straight state titles in 6A. If Lawrence wins this week, are we all but assured an all Kansas City basically matchup at CBAC for the 6A title?
I don't know. Does this podcast read Junction City? I mean,
it can.
It can technically. I guess it's it's the internet. I think Junction City would like to think they have a chance there, but I'm pretty sure that Junction City is behind Derby in terms of ability. And if Lawrence takes care of them, I think Lawrence is, fittingly, it's going to be at CBAC. You might as well have 2 Kansas City teams. Don't make anybody else drive in for that. Right. I mean, there's no sense.
Save the environment, save gas.
The 5A people are going to have to go down to Pittsburgh, and the 4A are going to have to go to Topeka. So make them come here. So
it is kind of absurd that there are no state championship games in the Kansas City area. I
think that what you'll find, and this is one of those years that you can have state championship games at high schools, and CBAC is a really good facility. I'm not, saying that, and on the Missouri side, they're doing it in high schools too, is that normally you would, a lot of times the reason you have it at the college is for media availability and the size of media that comes down. I know in the smaller classes in the Missouri side, there's a ton of small town radio, like class 3 games. There's like 7 different radio stations doing it. And that's where you need that space. And, like Pittsburgh, I haven't been down there, but I've just heard is that they have their regular press box, which is not huge. It's a good sized D2 press box. But then they take all the suites that they have at the stadium.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've shot video out of one of those suites before. It was sweet. It was great.
That's what I said. I heard it's really, if you want to go cover a game, Pittsburgh, Kansas is the place to go. They really do a great job in that stadium. I think Emporia was kind of a similar situation.
And then also this year with COVID, look, the bigger the stadium, the more fans you're going to be able to get in there. I've already looked up Kearney Stadium in Pittsburgh seats over 8,000 people. So if they do kind of 25%, that's a lot of people compared to the crowds we've had at regular games this year.
And definitely won't be as big a crowd at CBAC as it would have been in Emporia State. But if it's 2 Kansas City schools, I think that's not it's not a bad thing. And I think it won't be a home game for anybody. I mean, Olathe North doesn't play their home games there, so it's not like, but they will be in, Olathe has a chance to play there. But I think there's a really good shot. I think Lawrence is really good. And I think that'd be saying a lot to see Steve Rampy take over that program and lead them back to a state championship.
Yep. Down in 5A, are we barreling towards another Mill Valley Aquinas showdown in 5A? It only happens every single year.
I think so. I think DeSoto's a good team. The problem for DeSoto has been their defense. They've given up points to people. We know what Mill Valley did to them. There was a 7 in front of it back in week 2, which makes it tougher, I think, on Mill Valley because they did win so big. I mean, you got to be focused and ready to go. I mean, DeSoto's a good team. But Mill Valley looks like they're positioned there. Blue Valley Southwest, I still think Aquinas is the favorite. And if you talk to Coach Ork, he knows they've got a mountain to climb there with Aquinas. But this is a better Blue Valley Southwest team, and they're veterans. And they've been in this game before, and they've had a chance to knock some teams off in the past. And I think this is a chance for them because Aquinas is nicked up a little bit in some spots that they've got a chance here. But the overwhelming favorite is another Aquinas Mill Valley semifinal.
Yeah, it's funny you have the District 232 matchup because DeSoto and Mill Valley are in the same district, and then you have Blue Valley Southwest and Aquinas who have their own little rift between each other that has developed in the last couple of years. So heated kind of rivalry games coming up in 5A.
Yeah, no, I think it's the game's really, and it's not like that every year. I mean, this is really a year where all the teams in the quarterfinals on the Kansas side, in 4A, 5A, and 6A are all, there's not a game where you go, there's no way that team's winning. There's nobody that you can, because if it's 10:30 on Friday night and you're checking our scoreboard or tuning into 41 and you see Blue Valley Southwest win, you don't say you're shocked, because it's not a shocking thing.
All right, Bishop Miege and Tonganoxie in Kansas 4A. Is this the most interested you've ever been in a Kansas 4A playoff game, Dion? Because lately, I mean, just the last several years, it's just been Miege doing a victory lap around Kansas, winning by 70 points each game.
Well, I mean, it goes back to 2011, 12, or 10, 11, and 12, when I think it was Lewisburg, Eudora that went to the state championship game before Miege came back down. And no, you check out the radio show or check out the podcast. We have John Holmes on, and I joked with him. I said, "Man, it's great for media to have all these really good teams in 4A." And I said, "Look, I know you guys have had some runs where you're blowing everybody out by 30." I said, "But isn't this a little more fun?" I said, "Isn't this a little more?" And he's like, "Oh no." He goes, he goes, "Don't get me wrong." He goes, "But it's challenging and it gets you go." I mean, if you have the best team, you go out and you do your work and you do it. But when you got to, I mean, they don't stop the run very well at all.
A weakness for Bishop Carroll ran all over Bishop
Yes.
Miege, and I don't know.
Rockhurst did.
Throwing a forward pass this year. I don't know. They run it most of the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, and Tyler Bowden's legit. I mean, he was doing this at Lawrence Free State and, against good teams. So he's not, some kid that's not, a player, just they're from Tonganoxie. They don't know. And they play, and the Frontier League is better than it's been. Eudora was one of the bottom half teams, won a game and played Baser Linwood tough. So, I mean, the Frontier League was deeper. The UKC was deeper. And then the St. James and Miege went out and played tougher schedules than they played. And they have more losses than they've had in years past. And then you bring a Lansing down, too, as a good team down there. So no, it's definitely is deep 4A, and the coaches that are in there, that if you want to compete, that's what it's about, is playing good teams and going out and playing well-coached teams. And that's what you got. And then that's what makes it fun.
All right, let's do your Remax Big Three games of the week. We'll start on the Missouri side, a no-brainer here. Liberty and Liberty North. The rematch of, I think, week 2, where Liberty got the win over Liberty North 32-21.
Yeah, then, even you go back to last year when they played in the regular season, it was a one-score game, and Liberty wasn't as good as they are this year, and Liberty North was undefeated. So this is going to be a close game. Defensively, Liberty North is just lights out right now. Offensively, they run the ball and they make their passing game is efficient when they need it. Liberty, they got Winchip Williams back. They've had some offensive line issues. They're getting healthier there. They made some things happen late in games. If you put the ball on the ground against Liberty, they usually make you pay. And so it's a toss-up game. I mean, there's no way around. Liberty's coming off the better win in terms of the team they played in terms of competition. But Liberty North is playing better. I think they're playing better than anybody in Class 6 on the Missouri side.
Definitely defensively. They gave up 32 points and 35 points in their first 2 games this year, both losses. Since then, the most they've given up is 17 in a game.
Yeah, they have been, and they've gotten out of the early in their little streak. They were doing all these comebacks, second half comebacks and letting teams get leads. And we had talked to Coach Jones a few weeks back, and he said, yeah, no, I'm happy with the comeback wins, but I'm trying to stress to my players that we don't need to be down at halftime every week by 10, 12 points. And they've done that. Now they're coming out and jumping on teams and not letting teams even be a part of the game. And, that was a good win last week for them against Rockridge, and Rockridge isn't as good as they've been in the past, but I think 44, that's just a dominant win. It's just dominant in Class 6 in the second round of the playoffs.
All right. So we've got St. Pius hosting Lafayette County. What a story St. Pius has been this season.
Yeah.
Anthony Simoti comes in. They're 9-0. They're undefeated, rolling through the schedule. What does Lafayette County offer?
Well, Lafayette County is a wing T team, and they like to run the ball. They do some option stuff, and they've been there and done that. This is a team that's been in the state championship game twice in the last 10 years, and has made runs to the semis. And they are, one of the more consistent Class 2 programs in the metro and surrounding areas. And so they've been in this district championship game. None of these Pius kids they haven't won a district, even the old school style, since 2008, when two teams came out of the district, before the tournament. So that's going to be a big test. And I think the win over Maryville is a great win for Pius. And I think that's the one they've got to really lean on and say, that's a wing T team. We've got to be able to, look at that and know what we're doing there. But, Lafayette County is a young team. And so is Staley, really, or not, St. Pius is too. St. Pius is a young team too. So, we could be seeing this again next year with these two if they're in the same district. So it's definitely a good one. And I think the team that wins this, they've got Butler and Warsaw on the other side in the quarterfinals. They've got a good shot at making it to semis. I mean, nice. And beyond maybe. Who knows?
Nice. Last one on the Missouri side, you have Staley and Platte County in a good old-fashioned Northland, hit you in the mouth, rough and tumble football matchup on a Friday night.
Yeah, and Staley's a team that is young and inexperienced and had some injuries and was testing the depth that they did not have to start the year. Start out, 1-3, and they've won 5 straight. Beat Park Hill South last week defensively and did a fantastic job. And they're going to be tested. Their defensive backfield, they better find 6 guys because that's how many guys they'll find. There'll be 5 guys in the pattern almost every time for Platte County. And Chris Runke, their quarterback's a stud. He talked to Coach Light. He goes, you got to keep him in the pocket. He goes, if he gets out, he's going to kill you. And he goes, it's just, you just got to, he said to us, keep Superman in the phone booth. Now that, right. Then I'm sure after he had to explain what a phone booth was to his entire team, but that's their thing. They want to keep him in that pocket, but no, it's a good matchup of 2 teams that they expect to be in the district title game every year. 6 straight for Staley, 5 straight for Platte County. They both have made runs, quarterfinals, semifinals, state championship game in the last 3-4 years. Staley won 1 and Platte County lost last year in Class 4. So, and I think what you're seeing is that in Kansas City, that the difference between Class 4 and Class 5 is not, the good Class 4 teams can go run with some of these, not some, some years, some of those Staleys, at least some West teams were ridiculous. Yeah. But, Kearney bumped up to Class 5 for 2 years, went to the semifinals. So the good Class 4 teams, there's not that much difference between them, just like a really good Class 5 team can run with some of the Class 6 teams.
Over on the Kansas side, Drew Max Big 3 games of the week. 2 of them involve Kansas 4A teams, Bishop Miege, Tonganoxie. We've talked briefly about that. We've talked briefly about Baser Linwood and St. James Academy. Do you feel like both these games are going to be good and close?
I think so. I think that, the first one in Baser Linwood and St. James was a 1-touchdown game, and St. James scored a defensive touchdown in that game. So offensively, they were pretty even. And the one thing that helps Baser Linwood is they played Eudora last week, who just wouldn't give them the ball. They, slowed it down, took their time, so they didn't have as many possessions. But St. James will get up and down the field, and they'll trade some scores with them. So it's going to be it's going to be fun because Dakota Burrett and James White, their tailback, Dakota Burrett, the quarterback for St. James, are really talented. They got good receivers. And then you look at Isaac Stanton, the quarterback for Baser Linwood, and Jordan Brown, who's one of the better basketball players in the Metro too, and he's just a big athletic kid, and he has had a great season. Just good athletic teams and 2 good coaching staffs. 2 guys who've done it for a long time, and I joke with Stahlbaumer. I said, assuming you're ready for the double reverse pass on the first play. He's like, yeah. He goes, but yeah, well, he goes, it's that time of year. You don't leave anything in the cupboard if you don't you want to. He goes, you want to be able to show it all. So that he said, and they do some trick play stuff. So it's going to be a fantastic game.
I'm telling you, if Tonganoxie or anybody else doesn't beat Miege this year, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, this is the year.
Mark it down. That's my prediction right here. It's not going to happen. It's this year or never. All right. Then lastly here, we talked briefly about this game too. Blue Valley Southwest on the road to Aquinas. A couple of EKL foes that didn't meet this season because of COVID. You think this will be closer than maybe a lot of people?
I think so. Tanner Curry, the quarterback of Blue Valley Southwest, is playing really well. He gets Tristan, I think it's Everend, as how you say his name, the receiver back this week, and he was banged up, and I wanted to joke with Coach Orrick a few weeks ago. I think he had like 400 yards of total offense. He threw in returns, and he had a return touchdown, and maybe had an interception he did everything, and then he comes up hurt, and I'm like, well, maybe he doesn't need to hold him back, but no, that's a big weapon for them, and they've got 2 really good receivers, and Aquinas is, they aren't throwing the ball as well, but they've got to find a way to stop that rushing game with Aquinas and Tank Young. And he's a game changer. They don't wrap him up.
9 carries last week, but he had over 100 yards.
If they don't wrap him up, he's gone. And they've got to make that happen. So no, I think maybe next week we'll be like, oh, it's a bit, but there's more games this week and there's a lot of them that are good. So that's what makes it fun.
And so far this week, White, right? Cross your fingers, but
So
nobody.
far, so good. I know
right?
Staley as a school is virtual this week, and they've got a bunch of cases, so they're doing what they can. Last week had William Chrisman, and so that was there, and then there's some others in the St. Louis area, and percentage wise, we're still at about the same percentage. I mean, if we have one this week, it may bump the percentage a little higher, but if you have none, then you have none. It is what it is, and we all know numbers are spiking. So I think, you just hope you don't get to the week, the final week and have somebody have that happen. So
I know. Look, after this week, for a lot of the classes, there's only 3 games left, right? So just everybody, it's all in it together. But hopefully, everybody can do their best to make sure those games happen.
Yep.
All right, Dion. Thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it.
It's always fun.
Back for Dion Clisso, PrepsKC.com. I'm Mick Shaffer of 41 Action News. We'll see you next time right here on Snap Tackle Pod.